Good morning and welcome all of you to the breakfast show. As usual, on our breakfast show, usually we discuss several topics. Well, of course, today we're going to discuss one of the most important projects in Egypt, talking about one that is biggest of its kind in the land reclamation sector in the Middle East. We're talking about Toshka. And of course, we all know that today President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi inspected the Toshka project in Aswan Governorate and witnessed the beginning of the wheat harvest season. To discuss this in more details and to find out more about the impact of such a huge project on the Egyptian economy, first allow me to welcome our guest today in the studio, Dr. Youmn Hamaki, Professor of Economics at Shams University. Doctor, good morning.
Good morning.
So first of all, I'd like to shed the light on the significance of such a huge project and its impact on the Egyptian economy.
Actually, it's huge and it's quite important, specifically during this period when Egypt is facing challenges, and the whole world actually facing severe challenges by the latest war between Russia and Ukraine. And we mentioned that this war has affected seriously the prices of food, specifically wheat and corn and several raw materials produced mainly by Russia and Ukraine. And all the international reports mention to a large extent that developing countries and Africa specifically, they are going to witness for the coming period the danger of, severe shortage of food production. And from here it comes, our policy that started several years ago in Egypt towards enhancing efficiency of agricultural process. Actually, Egypt can be Egypt is considered as the first importer of wheat, the first importer country of wheat internationally. From here it comes that it's quite important for a population of exceeding 100 million to secure the production of food, on top of them wheat. And this is the importance of such a project, that to enhance, the potentialities of our agriculture sector towards more self-sufficiency of food. Unfortunately, during the last decades, we haven't taken care of our agriculture sector. The agriculture sector in Egypt, during the last decade, the participation in GDP was quite minimal. The rate of growth for the agriculture sector didn't exceed at all during the last decade 3%, which is completely, ununderstandable, taking into consideration that the largest of labor force is in the agriculture sector. From here it comes, this is a quite dilemma. So starting to give support to the agriculture sector by upgrading technology, by such kind reclamation, by planning what we are going to cultivate, by adding to the reclamated area is quite important for Egypt, not only to address such crises like what we are, but to support economic development. Because nowadays, when we are looking forward to move from the financial and monetary reform into the structural reform, all successful experiences had been built on securing food, specifically for large population. You have to secure your food, you have to secure the production of agricultural products that can be used in the manufacturing sector, and you have a comparative advantage. Egypt is having quite a comparative advantage in industries. From here it comes the importance of the agriculture sector and having more reclamation of land, since actually we used to have a degradation of our agricultural surface. We used to build on this agricultural land, and from here it comes that we started by supporting the superiority of law and having severe punishment to those who are building on agriculture agricultural land, and so on. So all the steps have been taken during the last period in order to secure our land. This project is quite important. Why? Because we are extending the capability of land reclamation, and from here it comes that these areas to be added by such an important crops like wheat, like corn, like dates, like fruits and vegetables. All these are quite important for supporting our economic growth, and which is quite more important, secure opportunities of job for thousands and millions of farmers in these areas, so that you can improve the quality of life for them. Because when you introduce technology, you upgrade skills, you can secure more income to those farmers.
I think also opening the door for more job opportunities, and opening the way also for the youth.
Yes, specifically youth, because actually the largest unemployment rate is in the youth and for women. You know, in Egypt, when you see the map of unemployment, you are going to find we managed to reduce the rate of unemployment during the economic reform, but still, we have a challenge regarding unemployment of youth, which is exceeding 10%, approximately 15% and more than that. And you have unemployment of women, it's quite high, reaching 30%. And from here it comes that you have, this means by economic meaning that you have human resources that are not exploited, despite that they are educated. We can't say that they are educated well enough, but they are up to be upgrading their capabilities in a very short period to join labor force in a better way and in a more productive way. And this can be regarded as potentialities that are not used and can be used efficiently to enhance the capability of the economy to increase productivity.
Doctor, we talked a lot about agriculture in Egypt and how it can be our black horse, because when we take good care of it, definitely we are talking about really a real competitive advantage. So how can this also work on the trade balance as well?
Yes, it's quite important, because if you look to the balance of trade, our balance of trade, still we didn't manage to achieve some kind of balance, even despite that we kept saying that we are going to increase the local contents of our industrial sector, and we are moving toward more self-sufficiency. We still have, during the last 3 years, our balance of trade is witnessing more and more deficit. We need to manage and to plan for our production regarding what we are importing and what we are exporting. Still, like for several products, since you are in your industrial sector relying mainly on importation, you are not adding a value adds. Why? Because you don't have the technology. And since you don't have the technology, you are not capable to increase the local content in the best way. And this is what we are working on it. So how to link R&D and all the researchers that are taking part nowadays in our universities, our research centers, how to be linked to the industrial sector and to serve their needs. And from here it comes, you are going to be able to develop your technology that it's based actually on advanced technology all over the world, and to develop your industrial sector on so that you can increase the local content and, alleviate such a deficit in your balance of trade. Still, a lot of work, needs to be done in order to improve your capabilities in the real sectors, which are, in the industrial sector, as declared by our government, that the structural reform is going to be concentrated on the agriculture, as we are seeing, the industrial sector and information technology sector.
When we talk also about the palm trees and talk about the idea of putting Egypt on the world map of cultivating or talking about dates. So how important it is?
It is important, but it's not such important as technology, because you know the value added in your balance of trade can be regarded when, as long as you are using more, what we can say knowledge economy, which is based on inventions and so on. So for this, as dates, as wheat, and all these are quite important to secure your food security, because you are large population, as I mentioned. It's quite important. Like for dates you mentioned, nowadays we are planning to be the second country in exporting dates and the high quality, which means that when you reach the high quality, you are reaching more value added. But it's not compared with highly technological product, and in which in knowledge economy you can add and add. That's why we have to work on all these sectors on a parallel ways, which means that like for electronic products, we have a comparative advantage. Still, we cannot reach the electronic component in our export is still very weak. So you have to increase this local component of electronic product. Why? Because you can achieve a very high value added value in such a product compared to the agricultural product. So the agricultural is quite important, but still you have to increase your potentialities for the value added product, like in electrical product, in electronic product. All this can guarantee for you a value added and more opportunities of job, as long as you are taking into consideration upgrading the skills of your labor force.
And also, like this, we are moving within the framework of the idea of the sustainable development as well.
Yes, this is quite important. This is a very important point. Why? Because nowadays we are approaching COP27, and the whole world is talking, about the climate change and to what extent we are retarding, and we have the world is witnessing severe challenges regarding climate change, and to what extent, COP26 declared to large extent, some commitments of the major economies to abide by the rules of the climate change and how to reduce emissions and so on. Despite that, all these challenges confronting the world nowadays, like the Ukraine-Russian war, adding more challenges towards achieving the sustainable development goals, but still the world can witness to how extent we are in a danger because we are not coping quite well with the requirement of sustainable development.
Talking about, just to continue with the idea of agriculture and talking about how can everyone share in this, especially also we talked about the youth, talking about the private sector as well, because agriculture really is one of the most important sectors, especially when it comes to securing food needs for Egyptians and exporting. All these things can play a major role in the Egyptian economy.
Actually, Nashwa, you touch a very important point, which is the role of private sector in Egypt. Most studies and reports coming from international organizations during the last 4 years, kept mentioning that we still cannot support the private sector as it required, which means that still the private sector in Egypt is suffering from severe challenges that prevent them from being, active. And nowadays we need the role of private sector, because with all these mega projects, these mega projects can produce and opening the opportunities for millions of the private sector, not only for large business, but for medium, small, and micro even. Still, the management of the economy still is not going well to open opportunities for the private sector. If you ask, our investors, either they are large or medium, you are going to find that they are complaining a lot. They are suffering from severe problems confronting them to achieve a better performance in, procedures. They are changing in a very short period. If the private sector nowadays in Egypt has managed to address COVID-19. Nowadays, the Ukraine-Russian war is adding more challenges for the private sector. So if you are, as management, economic management, adding more complications for this private sector, you are not going to be able to support your economic growth properly enough. And this is the most important dilemma and challenge facing Egypt nowadays. We have to ease all procedures and processes for the private sector, and still we have a concentration on investment, which means that the role of small and micro enterprises, despite all the initiatives that have been done during the last period to attract youth to start their own business, despite all this, still there is a concentration, according to our studies as economists, there is a concentration in the production of several products like ready-made clothes, like furniture, like laser, all these, categories in the industrial sector are supposed to be sectors that can absorb opportunities of job. Still, all these sectors are suffering from problems, and if they are going to suffer from problems, they cannot generate more opportunities of job. So you are still in your position regarding your capability to, generate opportunities of job for youth. And this is a big dilemma that I think our government nowadays is concentrating on how to, for the coming period, I hope so, for the coming period, that there is going to be a clear and transparent, strategy towards how to handle, giving more opportunities and enhancing the capabilities of the private sector to participate and, to open opportunities for fair competition, because still fair competition in the Egyptian market is not guaranteed for the private sector. And from here it comes that these challenges are preventing the private sector from playing their role as it should be.
Right. Dr. Youmn Hamaki, Professor of Economics at Shams University, always a pleasure having you with us on the show. Right, moving on to a quick break, then we'll be back with more on The Breakfast Show.